Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next Fireside Chat. My name is Kamil Gungor. I am working for the European Network on Independent Living. And, when we talk about independent living, we mean a lot of things because to truly live independently and included in the society, you need to have access to many areas of life and not only about personal assistance and closing institutions, which are all, of course, super important. But if we want to fully live independently and being included to society, we also want to have access to nightlife, to enjoy, to have access to sexual life, to flirting and to interacting with others. And for that reason, today we have a very interesting chat about this topic. And I have the pleasure to have with me Jane Madden, who did a very nice research on that for the University of Leeds. But Jane, welcome and thank you for being with us. Let us know who you are.
Thanks for the lovely introduction, Camille. My name is Jane Madden and I'm from Ireland. I just finished my Master's in Disability Studies, Rights and Inclusion online at the University of Leeds. And my kind of research, the research areas I'm interested in is disabled sexuality, particularly sexual identity, spaces that facilitate sexual expression, which we'll be talking more about today, and also the notion of sexual citizenship. So for people that aren't familiar with sexual citizenship, it's the right to have sexual self-determination. Really happy to be here today. And again, thank you to the Zero Project for inviting me to be here with you guys.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And I think from what I heard also from people, it's a very interesting topic to many, that it's not that much discussed, so it's great we really discuss it today. But why are spaces that are promoting sexual expression important in advancing sexual disability inclusion?
Yeah, you already kind of touched on it in your introduction there earlier, but obviously in the disability rights movement, the emphasis has been put on employment, education, transport, healthcare, and sexuality is often the afterthought and has caused tensions within the disability rights movement and within activists themselves, in the sense that activists who are campaigning for right to sexual expression are often told by other activists that their concerns are not the real stuff of the movement and it's better to direct the attention elsewhere. And this is obviously, however, this lack of prioritization has kind of resulted in the narrative that disabled people are ambivalent or disinterested in their sexuality and in turn the sexual spaces. Like nightlife. So I suppose this is also infiltrated into the much celebrated social model, which has been so pivotal in, I guess, kind of transforming private issues into public problems. However, it is kind of unintentionally neglected the spaces in relation to sexuality. And also this is infiltrated into the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities as well. There's not much reference to sexuality beyond reproductive rights. And this is quite the contrast to articles on employment and education, which have extensive material on them and the accompanying general comments as well. However, there is a paradigm shift occurring, at least in the Irish context, which is really great to see. At universities in Dublin, there has been plans to boycott venues that do not comply with accessibility over time, and that's been driven from an intervarsity boycott, which is really great to see. And also as well, the Irish government's recently produced disability strategy from last year, from 2025 to 2030, has said that they need to examine the barriers to the nighttime economy for disabled people. So it's really great to see that there is some small changes occurring, although a bit slowly. So yeah, I'll pass you back on to Camille there.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's nice to hear that. I mean, it's sad to hear that it's not really that much addressed and that much discussed, and we are still have a lot of work to do to make this topic more prevalent in our discussions. But it's good to hear that there is some progress, as you said, and there is more research, more discussions. We know initiatives also in Brussels. Our colleagues work on that, and a lot of other people are trying to address it, and I'm very happy to see it also coming to the Zero Project this year. But what approaches can nightlife take to be more accessible to disabled people?
Yeah, like when I look at like accessing nightlife, the quote that really comes to mind is from diversity, equality, inclusion champion Veronica Myers, and this quote says, "Diversity is being invited to the party, however, inclusion is being asked to dance." So diversity to me is the physical aspect, like the physical accessibility, which is not so much the focus of my presentation, because for me, the social accessibility is a lot more important. So social accessibility in these terms mean like the ability to kind of participate in nightlife culture on the same equal basis as like non-disabled people. So the ability to dance, to engage in sexual expression, if that's what you choose to do. So there's some really like cool projects. One such project is the Dance for Intimacy, the brainchild of Ali Wagner, who's also disabled herself. Basically, while clubbing in Berlin, she noticed like that accessibility was often the afterthought. So her project, Dance for Intimacy, is derived from the term access intimacy, where accessibility is like a central component to nightlife. And she's worked with nightlife venues all over the UK and has recently extended to Brussels as well, in Belgium, where I've been living for the last 4 years. So that's really great to see. And she works very closely with disabled DPOs and disabled people through focus groups, and she runs a lot of through these focus groups. This has enabled her to like collect feedback and to see what is the most pressing issues in the nightlife industry. And this kind of brings me on to like specialist training. So there's been a lot of reports across the UK and Ireland where disabled people are often refused actually entry to a club, not because the club isn't physically accessible, it's more so that they don't have a personal assistant to accompany them, or that they're a health and safety threat. So also as well, Dance for Intimacy works a lot with these clubs to kind of provide specialist training to staff. And I think you can take a lot of inspiration as well from what they're doing in queer spaces. So one club that comes to mind in Brussels for me is Agenda. And what's really great about this is that they brief their patrons on the door before entry into the nightlife space, to remind them to use pronouns, to remind them of consent, to remind them to say that homophobia won't be tolerated. And I think this could also this could also extend to disabled people as well. Lucy Webster, who's a British disabled activist and journalist, she's done a lot of work on this. And basically in her memoir, The View from Down Here, she talks about how when she's in nightlife spaces, like people do not respect her personal space, that they often touch her wheelchair without her consent, and people often view her body so desexualized to the point they treat it like it's a piece of public property. And I think what we can do here is another initiative from disabled historian Amy Kavanagh, which invented the hashtag Just Ask, Don't Grab. So to kind of encourage people not to touch people's mobility aids. Obviously, they don't want to discourage people from helping, and people often help with good intentions, but it's more to start the conversation and to kind of understand that mobility aids are a really important aspect of someone's body. You wouldn't touch someone's body without consent, and they should extend to mobility aids as well. For example, as well, accessibility info, and I know this from Brussels with a colleague of Camille, actually, that often clubs do not publish their accessibility info. Fortunately, this has become more standard practice across Ireland, and I think the UK as well, where they will regularly publish accessibility info for nightlife events. However, it is still not normalised within like mainland Europe, especially in Brussels, where we were often in cases where we would have to call or physically contact the club through social media trying to find accessibility info. So clubs just should be transparent, and even if they're not accessible, they should state that as well. Another initiative I would like to see is obviously Ask for Angela, which is which has been an award-winning campaign to protect people on nights out, where basically if someone is in trouble on the dance floor in a bar, that they can go up to a bar staff or a nightclub staff member and ask for Angela, which is kind of like a code for how people. It's a code basically to get escorted out of the venue. However, like the problem with this initiative at the moment, it's on the victim, or it's on the person to the responsibility is on them to alert nightlife staff. So I would like to see this extended. I would like to ask for Angela to be extended to also bystander intervention training, where on the door, and also that nightlife staff are also briefed to kind of spot the early warning signs, and to also be circulating and walking around the dance floor at regular intervals to make sure that everybody is protected and kept safe. Yeah, I think that's basically it. I've covered a lot there. So yeah, I'll pass you back on to Camille.
Thank you, thank you. I really like your passion on the topic and the research you did about it. It's, your knowledge is really great and it's very helpful for many people. You mentioned also a lot of people and their work. And I want to say here to the audience that are watching online and in person here that this Fireside Chat, similarly to all the other ones, is recorded and will be uploaded online. So you can then go afterwards and look, for the things Jane mentioned and for the work of other people and for these examples and have, a better understanding. I think it's a great material and great work being done on this topic. But now, coming to the last part of our chat, what role can nightlife take in promoting and facilitating sexual citizenship of disabled people? You already touched a bit of it, but yeah, feel free to go deeper.
Yeah, it must be stated that nightclubs alone will not create a paradigm shift when it comes to disabled sexuality, as that will require, an overhaul of sex education, also better mainstream media representation of disabled sexuality. But obviously, disabled sexuality can transform how we think about sex. Obviously, for those who might be familiar, Robert McClure's crip theory has been transformative in the way that we think about gender roles or penetration or third-party assisted sex. So, and it really encourages sexual experimentation, and it's also these crip theory serves benefits beyond the disabled community. As you might know, conditions like vaginismus or erectile dysfunction disorder are on the rise at the moment, and I feel like disabled sexuality really transformed the ability that we think about traditional sexual intercourse. So what nightlife can do specifically, they can do partnerships. For example, one such company is Hot Octopus, and they've developed, I believe they're UK-based, and they've developed accessible sex toys. And also another partnership they could have is with Field. For those who aren't familiar with Field, it's an inclusive dating app that has become very popular amongst the disabled community in recent times. And basically, yeah, I also think these partnerships will be very beneficial to kind of, I suppose, increase the exposure of disabled sexuality, and also to kind of, I guess, show all these kind of alternative forms of sexual expression, and to kind of make sure that disabled people are kind of accounted for in these spaces. I'll pass you quickly back to Camille, who will kind of close this fireside chat.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for, so many information we could discuss about the topic, which is, not to do a joke here, it's a sexy topic. So I think people want to discuss it a lot. And we could discuss more. Indeed, we have less than 2 minutes left. I know normally we shouldn't, but since we have 2 minutes, if there is any burning question let's say one question that maybe we can answer from the audience, we can try to do that quickly, but it should be something fast. And yeah, if there is anyone willing. Otherwise, we will just close it ourselves. But we want to make it a little bit more participatory. Is there any question from anyone? Last minute? Don't be shy, don't be shy. If not, we will close by ourselves. Okay, I don't see any volunteering. That's totally fine. So I want to thank you, Jane, for coming here, but also for the work to do. It's quite taboo in many spaces and in many places. We don't discuss it. Even within the movement, the disability movement, as disabled people, we don't discuss it because, the societal pressure has been so much, affecting us that we don't dare to express our needs and our self-awareness about the topic. And, we don't, many times people are self-compressing themselves and we are afraid to express ourselves. So I want to encourage you all to, to be more open and be more open to your, also when you are disabled people to be active in the field and to read, to look for the work of Jane and of all the people she mentioned. Now we are 15 seconds to the end, so I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm happy that there's so many people of you following here. I hope it's even more online. I want to thank also the interpreters and the Zero organizers for the space. Thanks a lot, everyone.